Most people think they know Florida. Disney World. South Beach. Overcrowded highways. Sky-high rent. The same 10 cities everyone talks about. But here's what the travel guides won't tell you: scattered across this state, hidden behind moss-draped oak trees and forgotten two-lane roads, are towns that feel like Florida used to be. Quiet. Affordable. Genuinely beautiful. And some of them? People are quietly packing up and moving there right now, before the crowds find out. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 10 of Florida's most hidden small towns. Places that feel almost unreal the first time you see them. And if you're thinking about retiring, relocating, or just escaping the noise, you'll want to pay close attention to every single one. These aren't tourist destinations. They're discoveries. And we're counting them down, from number 10 to number 1, starting right now. Number 10, Micanopy. If you've never heard of Micanopy, you're not alone. And the people who live there would probably prefer to keep it that way. Micanopy is the oldest inland town in Florida, sitting just south of Gainesville, surrounded by ancient live oaks draped in Spanish moss so thick it blocks out the afternoon sun. The entire downtown is barely 2 blocks long. Antique shops. A handful of restaurants. A handful of residents who chose quiet over convenience and never looked back. What makes it feel unreal is the stillness. There's no chain restaurant noise. No construction crane on the horizon. Just the creak of old wood floors and the occasional mockingbird. For retirees tired of Florida's frantic pace, Micanopy offers something increasingly rare: genuine peace. Median home prices still hover well below state averages, and the community is tight-knit in ways that larger cities simply can't manufacture. Number 9, Ozark, wait, Apalachicola. Tucked into Florida's panhandle, right where the Apalachicola River meets the Gulf, this small fishing town looks like it was painted by someone who wanted to prove that Florida could be beautiful without being loud. Victorian homes. Working waterfront. Oyster boats at dawn. A main street that still has an independent bookstore and a hardware store side by side. Apalachicola has a population under 2,500 people. But what it lacks in size, it more than makes up for in character. The town has survived hurricanes, economic downturns, and the near collapse of its oyster industry, and it's still standing, still proud, still irreplaceable. For buyers, the real estate market here offers something genuinely rare along any Florida coastline: affordability with charm. Waterfront properties that would cost millions in Naples or Sarasota are still attainable here for a fraction of the price. Number 8, Casadaga. This one is different. Casadaga is a small spiritualist community in central Florida, about an hour north of Orlando, that has operated continuously since 1894. It's known as the psychic capital of the world, and whether you believe in that or not, the town itself is undeniably fascinating. Quiet streets. Old homes. A hotel that's been open for over a century. And a community of residents who take their beliefs seriously and live accordingly, peacefully, deliberately, without the rush that defines so much of modern Florida life. Visitors describe it as stepping through a portal. The Spanish moss, the silence, the sense that this place operates by its own set of rules, it creates an atmosphere you simply cannot find anywhere else in the state. It's not a place most people relocate to. But it absolutely belongs on this list, because nothing about Casadaga feels like the Florida you've seen before. Number 7, White Springs. Sitting along the Suwannee River in North Florida, White Springs was once one of the most celebrated resort destinations in the American South. Wealthy families came from across the country to bathe in its famous sulfur springs. Grand hotels lined the riverbanks. Then the 20th century moved on, and White Springs got left behind. Today, it's a town of fewer than 800 people. The grand hotels are gone. But the river is still there, still wild, still breathtaking. The Stephen Foster Folk Culture Center hosts one of Florida's most authentic cultural festivals each year. And the community, small as it is, carries a quiet dignity that larger Florida cities lost decades ago. Home prices here are among the lowest you'll find anywhere in the state. If affordability is your primary concern, and for many Americans approaching retirement, it absolutely is. White Springs deserves a serious look. Number 6, Fernandina Beach. Technically a small city rather than a town, Fernandina Beach sits on Amelia Island at Florida's northeastern tip, just south of the Georgia border. And it might be the most underrated coastal community in the entire state. The historic downtown feels like Charleston, South Carolina, shrunk down to a perfect, walkable scale. Victorian architecture. Independent restaurants. A shrimping fleet that still goes out every morning. And beaches that are wide, clean, and not buried under 1,000 umbrellas. Fernandina Beach is growing, make no mistake. But it's growing carefully, and the community has fought hard to protect its historic character. For buyers priced out of Jacksonville's suburbs or the overcrowded Space Coast, this is a legitimate alternative that delivers genuine coastal Florida life at a more reasonable entry point. Number 5, Everglades City. This one requires a certain kind of person. Everglades City sits at the western gateway to Everglades National Park. It's remote. There's one main road in and out. The town has roughly 400 permanent residents. And it is, without exaggeration, one of the most wildly beautiful places in North America. Stone crab season transforms the town every October. The waterways are a labyrinth of mangrove tunnels and open bays. Dolphins, manatees, and roseate spoonbills are not attractions here, they're just neighbors. What protects Everglades City from overdevelopment is the very thing that makes it challenging to live in, its geography. The park surrounds it on nearly all sides. There's nowhere for sprawl to go. And that limitation is, paradoxically, its greatest asset. For the right person, someone who values raw nature over convenience, this place is as close to paradise as Florida gets. Number 4, Cedar Key. If you've spent any time researching hidden Florida, Cedar Key comes up. And there's a reason for that. This tiny island community, accessible only by a single causeway, sits on the Gulf Coast north of Tampa, surrounded by one of the most productive aquaculture zones in the country. The town runs on clam farming, fishing, and the steady trickle of visitors who find it and refuse to leave. Cedar Key has approximately 700 permanent residents. It has no traffic lights. And it has a particular quality of light in the late afternoon, the way the sun hits the water and the weathered docks, that makes photographers weep and everyone else go quiet. It's also one of the few Gulf Coast communities that has genuinely resisted becoming a vacation rental hellscape. The local culture has held. The community has held. And real estate, while no longer cheap, is still dramatically more accessible than comparable Gulf Coast markets to the south. Number 3, Seaside. Seaside is the town that inspired the movie The Truman Show. And the first time you walk its streets, you'll understand exactly why. Pastel homes with white picket fences. Perfectly proportioned town squares. Footpaths that lead down to one of the most beautiful stretches of Gulf Beach in the country. Everything, and this is not an exaggeration, everything is designed to make you feel like you're living inside an idealized version of American small-town life. Because it was. Literally. Seaside was purpose-built in the 1980s as a new urbanist community, and it became the physical blueprint for an entire architectural movement. Yes, it's become expensive. And yes, vacation rentals dominate much of the housing stock. But Seaside still earns its place on this list because of what it represents, a proof of concept that thoughtful, human-scale design can create a place that people genuinely want to inhabit. For buyers, adjacent towns like Watercolor and Seagrove Beach offer similar aesthetics at more attainable price points. Number 2, Yankeetown. Most Floridians have never heard of Yankeetown. That, in itself, is the recommendation. Located on the Withlacoochee River where it meets the Gulf, Yankeetown is a fishing village of approximately 600 people. No tourist infrastructure. No resort hotels. Just river, sky, mangroves, and a community that has operated quietly and contentedly for the better part of a century. The name comes from the northern settlers who founded it in the 1920s. The fishing has brought people back ever since. Redfish, snook, tarpon, the waters here are legendary among serious anglers who prefer not to share their spots. For retirement purposes, Yankeetown is extraordinarily affordable, sits within reasonable distance of Gainesville's medical facilities, and offers a quality of life that people spend decades searching for. It just doesn't advertise itself. Which is, of course, exactly the point. Number 1. Arcadia. Arcadia doesn't look like much on a map. A small inland town in DeSoto County, roughly equidistant from Tampa, Fort Myers, and Sarasota. No coastline. No famous attraction. No reason, on the surface, to pay it much attention. But Arcadia has something that most of Florida has already lost, its original bones. A historic downtown, the largest historic district in Florida, some argue lined with buildings from the early 1900s that survived by accident and stubbornness rather than design. An annual rodeo that draws crowds from across the state. A slower rhythm of life that the surrounding Sun Belt growth machine hasn't yet managed to dissolve. And here is the number that matters most for this audience. Median home prices in Arcadia regularly run between $180,000 and $230,000 in a state where the median is pushing $400,000. For retirees on fixed incomes. For families priced out of coastal markets. For anyone who still believes that a real home in a real community should be within reach of working Americans, Arcadia makes a quiet, powerful case for itself. It's not flashy. But neither is a good decision. Here's the larger truth behind everything you just heard. Florida is splitting into two very different states. The first Florida, the one you see in the headlines, is increasingly unaffordable, overcrowded, and fragile. Property insurance in some coastal counties now costs more annually than many Americans earn in a month. The state's population has surged by millions in just a few years, and infrastructure has not kept pace. For many people, the Florida dream has quietly become the Florida trap. But the second Florida, the one we've been talking about today, still exists. And it's holding on. These small towns represent something that the market hasn't fully priced yet, the value of stillness, community, and a manageable cost of life. The people moving to places like Arcadia, Cedar Key, and White Springs aren't making a compromise. They're making a calculation. They're asking what they actually need versus what they've been told they should want. And more often than not, the answer is leading them off the interstate and down a two-lane road towards something that feels, against all odds, like home. Florida is a complicated state. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. But within that complexity, there are still pockets of genuine beauty, affordability, and community. 10 of them, as a matter of fact, though the list could be longer. The question worth sitting with, especially if you're thinking about retirement, relocation, or just a different kind of life, isn't whether these places are perfect. They're not. No place is. The real question is this: what does the next chapter of your life actually require? And is there a version of Florida, quieter, cheaper, less photographed, that could give you more of what you're really looking for? Because those towns are out there. Most people will never find them. But now, you know where to look. If this gave you something to think about, hit that like button, it helps more people find this channel. And drop a comment below, which of these towns surprised you the most? We read every single one. We'll see you in the next one.